Hello everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to my Valheim Bulletin. As things go on this podcast, I posted our last episode on March 18th, and the next day, there was some news. There was development news, in fact. March 19th, posted up on the Steam News. We're going to be covering that today, as well as information on patch 0.148.6, which got posted on March 23rd. Before we dive into all of that, I want to thank the amazing people that have been subscribing over on the website. Your donations and contributions mean the world to us. That's what keeps this podcast network going and keeps it stronger than ever. When I say donations, specifically for the month of March, and it looks like we're going to extend this a bit into April, we are collecting donation money that is going to go to multiple sclerosis charities. In this case, you go check it out on the website. We're going to be donating a large sum of every subscription. So if you subscribe at the $5 level, about $2 or so, that's going. If you subscribe at the $50 level, we're giving away $30 of that sub. So it's a great way to help us keep going as a network, and it's a great way to raise awareness and everything for a cause that is just so dear to our hearts, because my one co-host for Chaos and Shadow has been diagnosed about 7 years ago. MS is a serious thing, and your help to combat it, to raise awareness for it, to raise money for treatment, prevention, all that sort of stuff, or I should say is research in combating it, it just means the world to us. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts to everyone that has been going over and doing that. But let's not spend any more time on housekeeping today. We'll just dive straight into it. Want to cover these notes, and then I want to have a little conversation about character movement and fall damage, because I saw that when I was poking around on the Steam discussion board areas. So let's get to that in just a minute. But first off, that development news article. So this article starts off by saying that a little over 6 weeks ago was the release of Valheim. In that time, they've sold 6 million copies of the game, saying that their community is steadily growing bigger and bigger. Which I agree with them. That is fantastic. I popped back into Valheim just the other day, and I'm getting ready. It's just been a couple weeks off, and I'm already ready to get back into it. They say a lot of things are happening within Iron Gate 2. We are still working from home, and although we miss our time together at the office, we're not letting that slow us down. We're very honored to have gotten the opportunity to take part in several interviews from podcasts and gaming newslets. Ooh, we're going to have to pitch them. It has been a hectic time, but worry not. We are, of course, still working on the game. So let's stop right there and say, I am planning on pitching them. Let's do a podcast if they're up for it. I would love to get your input. What questions do you have for the team? Because I'd love to field some of those. Send them my way. You can actually go to revelatornetwork.com/contact. It's just one of those simple, web forms you fill out that has a submission box for interview questions. I already have one of those all set up for you. So go fill that out, get those questions, and I will happily reach out to them for that. I like the next paragraph of this. It talks about their programmer working really, really hard to squash bugs that are going on in the game. Beyond just generic bugs in general, it says, for example, networking issues and balance tweaks are underway, specifically to our most evil bug, the Death Skeeto. Now, I'm guessing that's a pun both ways. The Death Skeeto is one of those things in the game where it feels a little, I guess it feels unbalanced until you know what you're doing, which is a lot of Valheim. Spoiler alert for just a second about how to fight a Death Skeeto if you haven't done so already. They can be parried pretty well with a shield. So as long as you don't have a tower shield, you can parry them on their incoming attack. And they take really, they can die to one shot from an arrow. It just depends on what your bow is. If you're rocking something really early, it might not be so easy. But in that way, you can dodge roll them too, because they have a fairly predictable attack pattern where they come in for a stab and then they go off on this semicircle floating around and coming back at you. So don't know if they're actually going to be tweaking the Death Skeeto, but I got to say, I stand somewhere in the middle where they're very tough when you don't have the gear, which makes them absolutely brutal if they come out to your boat or something when you're just traveling past the plains. But once you know how to fight them, they get markedly easier to take down. I do like in this one, they're calling out where you can go and vote for the features and bugs that you want to be have addressed immediately. That is valheimbugs.featureupvote.com. valheimbugs.featureupvote.com. I'll have a link to this note and everything in the description of the podcast. So if you want to grab it from there, or again, this is all coming from their Steam news channel. Apparently, I'm not even following Valheim up here. Oh, maybe that's a Steam bug. I was going to say, let's fix that, but Steam won't accept my follow anyway. So, oh well, moving on. It says a lot of you have reached out and asked about the roadmap. How's, quote, Hearth and Home coming along? Hearth and Home being the name of the next update they're looking at. Much of our focus has been on play testing and bug fixing, but as things are calming down since launch, we could spend more time working on our first big update. Our lead artist even graciously provided a sneak peek, which is this gorgeous picture of a raven. Oh, pretty. I know what this is. So when you get fine wood in the game, you can start putting like those little carved dragon things on the top of your houses. And this one looks to be a carved raven that will stick out from your house. I don't know what the actual formal title of that is. He says, what could this be? Sorry, spoiler alert, everyone. I know what that is. We could see the roofing of the house there for a second. So, hey, very, very cool. I'm really enjoying this. And I got to say, huge thanks to them. I've been so worried about doing this podcast because it's always felt like there's not enough news for me to cover. I've been sitting down in these days right before they drop something. So everyone out there, please pardon my poor timing on this. But that basically wraps up the rest of this post. It says, here's a picture of our team for our last Hearth and Home meeting, going strong from our home offices. Have a fantastic weekend and happy Ostara. Okay, let's talk about, this is going to be a plug for a minute, but happy Ostara indeed. If you're into the paranormal, if you're into Norse lore, mythology, anything like that, if you're into paganism, we do a lot of that sort of stuff over on our podcast network, specifically our flagship podcast, Chaos and Shadow. It's all about interviewing folks from the paranormal realm, lead investigators and such like that we really look up to. Very selective in who we bring on the show, so do not worry. The folks we bring on are highly vetted, but we do a lot of stuff related to these holidays, and Pagan, my co-host over there, just did one on Ostara. So if you want to check that out, go to go to revelatornetwork.com/news, and you can find the Ostara piece. Moving on to our next article here. We are getting into the 0.148.6 patch notes posted on Tuesday, March 23rd. It starts off saying, waha! This is a long one, sorry for the delay, but we're still waiting for a specific patch to the Steam Socket API, and it just went live today. The fix in question is not listed on the Steam changelog. I recommend you make sure Steam has updated to the March 22nd, 2021 version. Steam will, of course, automatically update itself to this version. Lots of changes and such on the way. Okay, so it sounds like they got an update they desperately needed from Steam, fixing a Steam Socket API thing. A little bit above my my knowledge grade here, but we'll roll with that. I can understand and have played games that have been affected by Steam's API issues in the past. I know that has a lot of issues, usually to do with multiplayer components. I could be wrong in this case, but typically I've seen that around MMOs that are on Steam, and that can mess with people's authentication. Authentication? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. It says, don't forget to update your servers as well. So make sure to do that if you're running a dedicated out there, if you're adminning one. Topping off the list here, we got campfires, bonfires, and hearths taking damage when dealing damage. So if you're like me and you're stepping in your campfire all the time, all the more reason to get a fence around it, because you are going to deal damage and degrade its quality as that goes on. That's probably worthwhile. I can definitely understand the purpose to that. I don't know. Is this something that is like needed? I guess, do they not have a durability already? You can damage a campfire, right? If you hit it with an axe. I'm just coming to think about it. Like, your buildings take duration damage being outside. Does this also mean that like water can destroy your campfire? Like actually destroy it by chance? I don't think that's exactly what this means. It says when it's dealing damage, it will take damage. So specifically sounds like a player thing. But I am wondering, it does make me wonder if there's going to be durability to campfires that are out in the wilderness. I don't know that 100% makes sense. Seeing as if you're just aligning a circle of rocks, they aren't going to like explode due to water falling on them. But I guess if your player's jumping on them, yes, you'd be kicking them around and that would mess it up a bit. However, the hearths, would that make so much sense for the hearths? And I don't know. I'm just thinking about this aloud now. I'm going to play with that in game. My friends are starting to log back into the server, so we're going to have to try that one. Next up, Reinforced chest inventory space increased to 6x4. Is that enough? Is that enough? I don't think that's enough, is it? What's a regular chest? All I can say is I made a reinforced chest or one of those personal. I guess there's a personal chest. Yeah, I think it was the small personal chest. That thing. No, I made both. I'm so sorry. I'm just being a total space cadet today. I made both, and I was very displeased with both, if I may. Specifically the reinforced chest, the one that's just supposed to not explode as easily. It's supposed to have higher durability, so it doesn't break as much. That one had almost no space in it for how expensive it was. So I'm curious, is 6x4 what a normal chest is in this game? And also, this spurs off a whole other conversation that I'm curious. I'm just going to ask this question. Do we think the server lags based on how many items you have accumulated in all of your chests? Because I've played a lot of games over the years that have attributed things like that. Games that have said, if the players, like in MMOs, if the players have too many items in their inventories cumulatively, that really messes with the server. I am curious, if you have all of your chests centralized in a town, like I'm sure most of us do filling them to the brim, like having tons of items, does that cause any sort of lag? I guess I'm worried because, should I be a hoarder or am I supposed to not be a hoarder in this game? That for playability's sake. Either way, I'm happy to see space increased because I think the wooden chests that we have are too small already. I'd like something bigger that we can stick all of our stuff into. Up next is a great quality of life. We got all boss drops now float on water. I'd like to see that more often. Without the ability to dive in this game, I find losing items into the water to be quite a struggle. So specifically boss items, I can understand why they would be focusing on those most of all. Huge props that our actual bodies, the gravestone, thank goodness that thing floats. If that sunk and you could lose all your gear just by dying out in the ocean, that was my thought the first time I died out there. I didn't expect it to have a flotation device. So when I died, I was so scared. I thought I was falling. Basically, if you play Minecraft, I was thinking I had fallen into the lava and lost all of my gear permanently. Thank goodness you could just pull up next to your corpse and retrieve all your loot in this game. So to have boss drops do something similar is nice. I would love to see the same thing happen with blood bags from leeches. I don't know if that is asking too much. It might be. Let's see. But drops do float from the sea creatures out there that you kill, right? Their meat floats. So maybe I'm not asking anything crazy. I'd love to see the leeches' blood bags float because if you kill them on the shore of a swamp zone, they will sink into that deep water there and they're just gone. And that's unfortunate because you do get attacked by leeches very often. That situation happens. I'd argue that's one of the most common types of combat I run into the game is having leeches pull up next to the boat, just because that's long-term play style. It's a very common thing. So anyway, I would love to see that continue. If that is a trend, really, really nice. They say sunken crypts entrances got tweaked to stop tombstones from getting stuck. Okay, I've not seen that yet. It's tombstones getting stuck in the entrances to sunken crypts, but I like it. Now, the sunken crypts, though, as we're talking about this, I'm assuming those are the big circular ones, yeah? You guys have probably run into those. They look like something out of Skyrim, but they're a very circular staircase that goes down into the water. Since we can't swim, we can't access them easily because your character's basically is sitting on top of a flat pool of water. I don't imagine the sunken crypts are talking about us actually going in to get iron from those, but maybe it is. Talking about the entrances were tweaked. Well, don't get your body stuck in a sunken crypt, everybody. If you know better than I do what the naming of that is, send me a message and tell me how little I know about Valheim. 170 hours did not qualify as getting names and everything committed to memory. Are you enjoying listening to these shows on the Revelator Podcast Network? If so, let us know. By leaving reviews and sharing the shows with friends, it's a wonderful way to introduce our show to a whole new audience. And just in case you don't know, we've got 4 podcasts at the moment, including our Paranormal Chaos and Shadow, Kyle's Communist Book Club, Stellaris Emergency Broadcast for all you gamers, and Kyle's Valheim Bulletin for the gamers that just can't get enough. We got a lot going on, so consider becoming a member at chaosandshadow.com/subscribe, or check out my personal page there at chaosandshadow.com/Kyle. Oh, they did something to fix the rotation of wood tower shields on item stands. Deathsquitos and Drake trophies got their drop rate increased. Now that's good to know because Drake trophies are needed for helmets. When you get to the silver stage of the game, you use those Drake trophies to make a helmet. Not so easy to get them, in all honesty. Much less of a drop rate than other trophies in the game. So glad to see that upped. And I guess the same is true for Deathsquitos. We got one at least, but probably only one or two. Not that many. 1 and 2 star creatures got an HP fix. Cool. Night spawning wolves should be easier to tame now. They'll stop trying to run away and despawn after starting to tame. I did have that problem personally. Yes. Did see that. Did try and tame a wolf in the middle of the night, and that was awkward. He was de-aggroing for me. He would go back to his spot from before. Harpoon will not work on bosses anymore. That makes sense. The in-game console is now disabled by default, so you need to add a launch argument to enable that. That's something us moderators and admins will need to know, huh? Because we'll need to turn that on. It says add launch argument to enable. So I assume in Steam, you're opening it up, you're going to your preferences, and then you're going to do one of those dash console. So go check that out in the notes. Don't take it from my verbal cue here. The console command for enabling developer debug modes and commands has been changed to dev commands from I'm a cheater, and a warning message has been added. Okay, so that's also good to know. Now when you're going into that mode, you're not typing I'm a cheater. You're typing in dev commands. That, I won't lie, that does feel a little bit more fitting. I'm a cheater was really cute back in the sim days of 2001, but yeah, when you're deving a server, it is a little bit different. So dev commands feels a little bit more formal and probably appropriate as this game has gone from obscurity to mass popularity. Improved enemy projectile reaction system. I've not seen that yet. I can tell everyone that prior to this update, quick tip when it comes to parrying from bows, I've noticed that if you got your shield on, you can parry a bow arrow launched in your direction if you right-click about the time you hear the arrow sound effect release. So whenever you hear it like pew from the bow, that's whenever you right-click and hold that down, and that's about when you can parry. It seems like almost all the archers in the game use the same timer, which is really nice. So if you're parrying skeletons or Draugr archers, that can make all the difference because they do, and I hope they do not change this, you can actually parry stun them while they're using their bow. So the trouble is that the stun lock, whatever that's called in this game, whenever you parry and they get stun locked, rarely is it enough time for me to close the gap and actually like stab the dude. They usually come out of their stun lock at that time. And maybe that's a conversation. Maybe if you want a big conversation about combat mechanics in the future, I have a friend who's really, really good at that in this game. We could probably have them on to talk about it. So if that's something you want, let me know. We can work on that too. But the whole combat system in here is really, really nice. Moving on, they have battle axe tweaks. It says it's going to hit multiple enemies easier. I'm thinking that means that the battle axes in the game were just not doing a multi-hit well enough. It must have just been only smacking one target instead of doing kind of the cleave effect. Player knockback force is affected by equipment speed modifiers, i.e. heavy gear will reduce the knockback from enemies. Oh, really? So no longer are little dudes going to knock me, up a hill when I'm rocking all my heavy gear. I like that. If that's what that means, I'm in. Black Forest Stone Tower got some tweaks, so if you're seeing those out in the game, send me some pics of what changed on those. Got some ward system fixes. You can no longer place a new ward when an enemy ward overlaps. That's the home wards, right? To keep people from griefing your stuff, I believe. Comfort calculation is fixed. Oh, that's good, because also for those that don't know, the prettier your house looks when it comes to that comfort level you're seeing on the screen, the higher your rested buff is going to last for, like the longer it will last for. So higher prettiness, higher comfort in a place means better rested buff, longer, stronger in combat. They fixed the failed to connect error message. The serpent trophy stack got fixed. Missing motor spawn location in some worlds has been fixed. For existing worlds, a gen location command needs to be run manually in the local game with the dev commands to generate new locations. Okay, Go check that out. The Meningard item collider fix. Not sure. I know that has to do with the belt you can buy that gives you the extended inventory space, or I should say the extra carry weight. But I'm not sure what item collider fix means. Oh, this is a big one for housing folks. They added a slight use delay on the hammer, the hoe, and the cultivator. I wonder, is that going to make things better? Or is that going to make things more annoying? Honest question. I don't know. Slight delay use delay. I understand what that means. It's going to give it like an extra little bit before it can be clicked again. But is that going to save people from doing something annoying? Or is that going to add a layer of annoyance in there? Hammer, remove the auto repeat. Hammer, remove auto repeat added. Okay. So does that mean now that when you're trying to delete a bunch of things using the hammer, that you can now hold down the middle click button instead of doing single clicks? I gotta say, as someone who is definitely gonna have really bad carpal tunnel in my life, like I'm already starting to at 29 here, too many video games. Please, any game that can add in like a repeating click thing, that is always welcome, especially in the housing space where it's not always just combat related. But same with cutting trees. This is one of those games where you have to do individual whacks, right? Can we get that on auto repeat too? I know that might be tricky because of the combat system, but I hate having to do singular clicks. If I can auto click, please, please, please. It's just good on, I'll speak on behalf of a community that's not me yet. Again, I said I'm gonna have carpal tunnel, but I have a lot of friends out there that do play games and they're disabled in one shape or form here when it comes to gaming. It could be like I have a friend that only can use one hand for it. There's a lot of disabilities out there that having an auto repeat ability, it can save people a lot of stress and discomfort. So more power to that. I'm always a fan. Let's bring it on. Let's make the game easier for folks to play, especially when it's the housing stuff, like all the more. Because, you're choosing to do something that's slightly relaxed. Let's let it be relaxed. That better network bandwidth handling should work better on low bandwidth connections. Also use higher data rate if possible. That might relate to a thing that was going around the community where people were saying that if someone with a bad connection is the first one in the village, they kind of host the physics for that village a bit. And that if their connection is bad, that can reduce your FPS in the area. Don't know if that still stands out to be truth all these weeks later, if that's been debunked. If that is true, I'm wondering if this thing may have just fixed that. Dolmen location fixes. Stop top stone from falling for no reason. Okay? Don't know what dolmens are considered in this game. Fixed removing item from item stand, not always syncing item stats. Fixed removing item from item stand, not always syncing stats. That does not sound good. That sounds to me like you could put something on an item stand, you would pull it off, and it might have broken mechanics to it. Like it would be less good or less upgraded than you put it in there. Not sure, but that is a good one to be fixed if that's the case. Server list refresh button can be pressed before the entire list has downloaded. Better bad connection detection. Fixed issue causing server to send more data. The longer the client was connected. Oh, that's interesting. Fixed issue causing server to send more data the longer a client was connected. So that means the longer you were in a server, the more data that server was shoving your way. That's a weird one, and I'm glad they fixed that too. That does start to bring us to the end of this list. Very glad we got through this, and I pardon me if this is at all boring. Let me know. I can cover these patch notes a bit briefer in the future, but I was reading them with you for the first time. I saved these ones for that reason. I didn't want to look ahead, and I'm glad we did. They're fixing a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of worried about, or like maybe kind of keeping me out of the game at the moment. So TLDR, I'm taking my break from it now because I know I'm obsessed with Valheim. Again, 170 hours in like 2 weeks, I'm hooked. But I am taking a break right now because I don't want to burn out on it. I don't want to force myself to play when there's not the newest content happening while we're waiting for that House and Hearth update to come through. As we wait, we will continue to do these. And as we wrap this one up, I did want to leave you with a little conversation towards the end. I wanted to compliment this game immensely on the way the character handles. That was the very first thing I noticed when I got into Valheim, and I'd be curious to see if any of you out there noticed the same. But I've played a lot of new survival games that hit the market. They rarely get character movement as smooth or as comfortable as this team did. That stood out to me right away because a friend had been getting me back into World of Warcraft just Didn't work out. I did not end up staying. But a friend had got me into World of Warcraft just like a week before getting me into Valheim. And I noticed, I was like, wow, this has the handling of many games that are considered AAA titles or considered, just cultural touchstones. Like World of Warcraft has been around for about 15 years now. I've played survival games that have been in early access before, and you get in there and you feel like they're trying to reinvent character movement in a bad way. Valheim, not that at all. I was just blown away by how well my character was running and jumping and dodging. Again, it felt like something that had been just polished to the point of perfection. And that means a lot. I think that's something that some game developers either probably just don't have the experience with, or maybe don't prioritize that as a function of the game, which would be unfortunate if that's the case, because I think character movement is, it's your primary user interface with your toon, with your avatar, with your person. So what you're building there, it matters if they're not responsive, if they're not reacting. This game really nailed that. This does start to bring up, though, the conversation that's going on about fall damage. Fall damage is something that is, it's one of those things in video games where we do want realism in our video games, but some realism is not the best. For example, like The Sims is a great video game for making real life a bit more fun. It shows you the highlights. You can make mistakes. One thing that's not always a great time in The Sims, or at least that a lot of simulator games try and leave out, is paying your bills. The Sims has a little bit of that. They always have had a tiny bit. But they make sure not to make it agonizing for you, because that's an agonizing thing from real life. So we get back to this fall damage conversation where, yes, in real life, jumping off a building, you could take immense damage to the point of gory death. But at the same time, is that what we want in a video game? A video game is escapism, after all. If your game, any video game, becomes more trouble than real life, then I think players should be sitting there asking themselves the question, why am I not out there building something in the real world? Why am I building this castle in game? Why don't I go and try and, learn a trade IRL, and I can actually build, and I can do this, and I'll still have to pay my taxes and all that anyway. But, at least I'm not doing it in a game and then double doing it in real life. It's the age-old question, how much reality is too much reality? And I do think the fall damage in this game skews into that territory of aggressive, especially small fall damage things. And what I mean there is you can be, like, let's just say you've built yourself a tower. You can go up kind of like a half flight of stairs, a solid flight of stairs, and your character can like jump down the side of it, which in real life you'd definitely be fine. We could all go and repeat this task in person. As long as you got legs that are sustaining of a fall like this, you're going to be good. But your character acts like it's the end of the world. And that is just, I think it needs some tweaking there. I think it needs a little bit of an update. I'm fine with fall damage in video games. No problem there. However, again, it's a balance, and I think they've nailed the character movement. But then that leaves me feeling like the fall damage component is very unadjusted. It's very imperfect in its current iteration. So I hope to see that get a little bit of a fix. I like I said, I could see that conversation going on. You can chime in on that conversation too, just by opening up Steam, going over to the community tab. Your mileage may vary, though. Getting into discussions on forums is not something I do anymore for sanity's sake. So I will leave you with that and just say, get your voice heard. We talked about earlier, there's great ways to submit your bugs and feedback. I'm going to shout that out again. That is valheimbugs.featureupvote.com. That's where you can put your bugs and fixes, see what they've been working on. Wonderful place. Go check that out. As for everyone listening to this show, do me a favor. Share it out with your friends that are playing Valheim. So if you've got a crew that you're playing with every night, let them know about the podcast. If you're in Discord servers where you can share stuff like this and their Valheim friends, share it there. Don't break any rules, please. But give it to friends. Let people know. That helps the show grow. We actually have an advertiser sitting in the wings, too. We just need a few more listens before we can actually start working with them. So if you guys out there want to help support this show, seriously, for free, just share it. Share it. Subscribe in all your podcast apps if you use a couple. Pop them in there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you like. And then finally, again, go check out the charity that's going on. Go to RevelatorNetwork.com. You can see a join tab up at the top right of the site. Click on join. You can become a member, or go to RevelatorNetwork.com/subscribe. Same place. Get you in there. Talks about the charity we're doing. It's just wonderful. I cannot thank the people that have signed up enough. If you have any questions at all, our website has a way to get in touch with me directly. There is a chat button at the bottom right of it. Feel free to open that baby up. Send in any questions. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you're looking for anything, if you need a link to the show on a certain podcast player, if there's somewhere you can't currently find the show, but you want it to be there, what do? RevelatorNetwork.com. Submit your questions at Submit your questions at RevelatorNetwork.com/contact. And that's going to do it for today, everyone. You stay safe out there. Oh, check out my Twitter, Kyle Paranormal. Kyle Paranormal. That's it. Over on Twitter. Check it out. It's linked on the website. But enjoy yourselves. Have fun. We're going to get back into the game very, very soon. Watching one of my friends play it on Steam as I record this. So I would also going to try and rope someone else in to do some of those podcast episodes with me. I'd love to have a co-host for it. If you yourself were a podcast that's interested, hit me up. I got one of my friends I might poke here and there. But for time's sake right now, as this game's still in early access, we'll just keep doing these cute little check-ins. I hope they've been informative. And if you have any feedback at all, where do we go? RevelatorNetwork.com. Stay safe. Talk to you next week.